Hey everybody, Johnny Good here. Good evening, greetings. Guess what? We have ourselves a very special guest tonight. Now, this person is been a friend of mine for at least 18 years, Larry?
Yeah, I'd say since about 98.
Something like that.
Yep.
All right. I don't normally believe in super truckers, but Larry is an exception of the rules. In fact, Larry is always the exception of the rules. So, Larry, just to give them a little taste of what you're bringing up is like, you grew up in a farm, right?
Yes, I did. I grew up on a farm about 500 acres.
500 acres, and how many heads of cows did you guys have?
We milked about 120, and we raised about 300 pigs.
And you have about 3 brothers?
Yeah, I got 3 brothers and 1 sister.
Gotcha. And you guys were known as the tough neck in your neighborhood, right?
Yeah, we were the terror of the neighborhood. Yeah, everybody knew us.
But your upbringing kind of taught you to do most of the work in the farm, welding, mechanicking.
Yeah, my dad actually, he broke his neck. He, when I was 8 years old, there was a big snowstorm. Grew up in Wisconsin, and there was a big snowstorm, and school was called off, but they wouldn't let the buses go out because it was so bad. So they called the parents and said, "Hey, if you can come, you can come. Otherwise, we'll figure something out." And my dad decided to come, and he was driving over a hill, and the plow only plowed one lane. A car came from the opposite direction. When they were cresting the hill, and my dad decided to go off the road instead of hitting the car, and he rolled the car, broke his neck. 2 of his vertebrae switched places, and his spinal cord was between there. So he was paralyzed for about 2 years. So when I was 8 years old, I was kind of thrown into that, and we had this big working farm. All my brothers kind of took over the farm to run it, and I just became mechanically inclined. So
you're the youngest, right?
Yes, I'm the youngest. And so I became, I taught myself how to weld, and I just did, all my brothers, they'd go out and work the fields and everything else, and I would help milk cows and raising the pigs and feeding them and stuff. But then when something would break down, they would bring it in, and they would go to sleep, and I would get up and work on repairing.
So you became the MacGyver of the family?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
And that's how it worked for a couple of years. And then one day my dad was in a clinic in Minnesota, and his pastor came and talked to him, and they prayed about it, and it was basically going to be his paralyzed for the rest of his life. And the next morning he woke up, and he had to go to the bathroom, and he just got up out of bed, and he could walk, and he was ready to come home.
Wow, that's amazing. You never told me that. I never asked. Yeah. Wow. All right. So fast forward, you work at Kohler Company doing some kind of hot something.
No, I was in the engine department.
Engine department. Okay.
Yeah, I took a job there, and worked there for quite a few years, and then I had the opportunity to buy into a hobby town, USA.
Wait. Don't skip the long hair part.
The long hair part?
Yeah, didn't you say you had a very long hair?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you work at the department where nobody wanted to work there because it was really hot?
Yeah. That was in the battery. It'd be about 120 degrees in there with that big furnace going on.
Oh. All right, so to the hobby store. Here we go.
Yeah, I worked part-time in a hobby store, and the opportunity came up to buy into it, and I decided I was going to do it. So I bought into it, and the guy was supposed to teach me how to run it and everything else, and I kind of just got dumped in there, and he didn't really teach me too much, but I took it over and ran it, and that's how I met John.
Yeah. You and I have been flying airplanes and building weird airplanes and flying
doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Flying $800 airplanes and just trying to crash into each other. With no worries in the world.
No, we used to fly up there and see how close we could get to each other without crashing.
Yeah, and everybody in the field would like, I have a heart attack. Yep.
Yep.
Remember that guy, Scheinmeister?
Yes.
And every time somebody would fly close to, he would dive on top of his airplane and he was the Secret Service of a president. He would die for his model airplane.
Yeah, he would get on his knees and throw out his hands and cover his airplane, afraid somebody might crash into it.
Yeah, that guy was a fanatic.
Right. he's still flying.
And all that time I was working truck driving for a little bit, I suppose. Yeah. All right. So without mentioning any names, now how did you get into trucking, and what was your first time to drive, and how did that go?
Without getting into names?
Yeah, no names. Who brought you to truck driving, or what did the guy do to you the first time you drove a semi?
Without getting into names.
No,
okay.
No names. Oh.
No names. All right. Well, somebody, I got out of the hobby business, and I kind of went, what am I going to do now? And somebody said, hey, you should become a truck driver and come and ride with me. So I said, okay. So I got into the truck and I went with a run with them. Yeah. And basically about 2 hours down the road, he crawled into the bunk and said, here, jump over here. And I jumped over there and I drove a truck down through Illinois and Indiana and Ohio and that. And we delivered a load and came back.
Yeah, wasn't there like you guys set the cruise control and at 55?
I didn't know how to shift yet. I wasn't good at shifting. So basically it was just turn the cruise control on and just go.
Yeah. Remember that time where the guy kind of just took your hand over that guy's hand and on the shifter, and then he started shifting up and down just to get the feel of, all that. Yeah.
And I ground a lot of gears that night.
Yeah, and then just back and forth between 10 and 9 and 10 gears, back and forth. Yeah, and after that, you guys set the cruise control at 55. The guy got up doing 55. You sat down, and then what? The rest is history?
Yeah, I got home and I decided, okay, and I looked around and I contacted Swift. And they had a truck driving school that was part of Fox Valley Technical College, and they I hired me, and I went to a 2-week course up there, and I did their truck driving course up there, and then I went out into a truck and then me and another trainee joined up together, did a team operation for another 2 weeks. And then I did a final test, and I got in my own truck. And ever since then, I've been rolling down the highway.
Now, this is where I believe that you're the exception of the rule, because, well, you sat down at the chair, at the seat, so you told me. And how long did it take you to, not get nervous anymore?
I'd say I was kind of nervous.
About 10 minutes?
Maybe an hour. Yeah, maybe half an hour, I was a little nervous, looking back in the mirrors like, wow, this is a long rig. And after that, a little bit, I got used to it and calmed down and just drove it along. I've been driving tractors and everything else all my life, big equipment, so.
You've never been in a semi before, right? Before that?
I have, yes. When I was, I want to say 14 or 15, I don't think I've ever told you this. But when I was about 14 or 15 years old, my brother, Vince, truck for a company, Steel. And he was very tired one night coming over. He's
Larry, you're breaking up. Larry, hello. Larry. Oh boy. Larry, hello. Oh, lost it. I hope he calls back. Hello. Nope. There we go.
Hello.
Yeah, I lost it. So, your brother Vince was a truck driver?
Yeah, he was a truck driver hauling steel rolls. He rolled into my house and he said, "Hey, I'm tired. Jump in the truck with me." So I jumped in with him. We got on the Highway 41, and I was about 14 years old. And he said, "Get over here." And he stood up just the same way, and I got into the seat. And he said, "If you have to stop, push in that left pedal, and the middle one's the brake, and just pull it over to the side. Don't try to shift." And he crawled in the back and went to sleep for about 2 hours. So I had a little bit of experience.
Yeah, but 41 was not an interstate back then. It was.
No, it was just a highway.
Yeah, it was just a highway.
Wasn't a big one.
But you drove from Wisconsin all the way to Ohio, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I believe it was Cincinnati, or not Cincinnati. What's the stop?
Youngstown, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that. It was right up at the top.
Yeah.
We took Highway 20 all the way across Ohio.
Now, if I remember correctly, that guy took advantage of you, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
because I didn't get paid for that.
Yeah, and you did most of the driving, I think. What happened?
Yeah. Yes, I didn't get paid for any of that driving or nothing, and the guy just crawled in the back and went to sleep. I think that all your listeners are kind of figuring out who it was, but we won't name names.
No. Now, Larry, well, I bet you the biggest money you've ever made in truck driving was still with Swift, right?
Well, the biggest money I made was being independent, but I made very good money with Swift.
Yeah, you were driving team or?
Well, I was driving. I had a dedicated run, and I was a trainer.
Yeah, but you did most of the driving.
Yeah, I drove most of the hours, but I had a student in the truck with me, and I could run off of his logbook. So we'll say I was legal. I won't say so, but I would drive a lot of hours. I would pick up I did a bread run, and I would pick up in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, a bunch of stops all through Wisconsin, down through Chicago, and then ended up in Louisville, Kentucky, emptied out, reloaded with the empty containers, and drove it all the way back home. And I did that every day.
Yeah. But you know,
and I would bring home I would clear after taxes about $2,500 to $2,600 a week.
Jeez, that is good money.
It was back then too.
Unfortunately, the alimony or the child support got most of it, right?
Yeah, I had child support at that time, so which was fine. I
Yeah,
got to support the kids.
The problem was the most of that went to the brand new Camaro, didn't it?
Yeah. Do we have to talk about my past mistakes? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. So she bought a brand new Camaro, and then what? You decided just to quit, right?
What's that again?
Yeah, she decided to buy a brand new Camaro.
Yeah.
Thinking that that child support was going to be there for another 10 years.
Yeah.
And I guess she ended up taking it back.
Oh no, I paid for that whole thing.
Oh, you did? Oh boy.
Oh yeah, because once she was very good at the courts, and once she got that money, I was never able to get amounts down. So
Yeah.
it didn't matter what job I took after that. I paid a lot in child support, but oh well, life goes on.
So how long have you been driving now, Larry?
2000.
2000. Oh yeah, it happened right after my dad died, right?
Yep. It was right after your father died, and I jumped out in the 6 months or so after that, I think.
You know, Larry, I just thought about this. I think the statute of limitation really applies to all this. So, don't you think?
Statute of limitation of what?
To the past, whatever. All the mistakes that happen, the illegal driving and the not.
Oh, illegal driving and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess so. I don't know if there is a statute of limitations. I mean, you only got to keep a logbook for 8 days, right? So,
yeah.
So I guess the statute of limitation is 8 days. What they don't know happened before that is kind of.
Now you went and bought your own truck, and you leased it to companies, right?
Under the advisement of someone that we won't mention.
Well, you can mention that. Yeah, I did.
Okay, yeah, John sucked me into it.
Yeah.
It's great over here. Come and join me. That was John's words.
Yeah. So you went out and bought yourself a used Schneider truck?
Yep. It was a 2-year-old truck. I bought it from Schneider.
$15,000, I think it was.
No, it was 26,000.
26,000. Yep.
And I jumped on, and I made good money. I won't say I didn't. I did okay.
I even made $500 out of you.
Yeah, I did mostly, like what you're doing, running off the East Coast, maybe a little south, and then coming back. And I did okay. And but then I broke my leg, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, you were off for about a year and a half.
It was 8 months. I was laid up in traction for 8 months.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, WL changed their policy, and they moved my arch nemesis, who was a driver manager of mine, and I told him off. They moved him up into recruiting.
Yeah. See, okay, for everybody that doesn't know, Larry doesn't take BS lightly.
No, I do not.
He's the opposite, or he's the king of the. He's, what do you call that? The king of the unpolitically correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I say it how it is, and I don't really care who knows, who it bothers.
And one thing that Larry can't stand is educated dumb people.
Yeah.
Educated people that do dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're not cruel to stupid people. You're just cruel to, people that should know better.
Yeah, I don't take gruff from anybody. How's that?
There you go.
So, I came back to after my leg, and they decided that they didn't want me hauling my own trailer anymore and making 80%. They wanted me to haul their trailer and make 70%. And I was kind of in a bind and said, okay, I guess I'll have to do it. And then I got up there, and then here's the guy who I had as a driver manager, and we did not get along. And basically, he told me to leave. So I said, okay, I guess I'll go independent and start my own company.
That was the best thing that ever happened to you, didn't it?
Yeah, I was surprised on how easy it was to do. You can hire companies out there. They say, oh, hey, we can get you all your MC numbers and start up your whole deal for $5,000 or whatever. You give us $5,000 or $3,000 or whatever, and we'll help you start your own trucking company.
Like OIDA did. OIDA does that, right?
A lot of companies do that, and I did some research, and we talked to the DMV, and they're like, you just need to file this form and this form and this form, and send in a couple checks, for the fees, for the forms and everything, and you're good to go. And I had a lady at the Madison DMV to kind of help me out a little bit and walk me through it and what forms to fill out. And it took about 2 weeks, and it ended up costing me about $250. And I had my own trucking company.
Now, what was your first dispatch load? What was that like?
It was exciting, I actually have a picture of it because we had the truck, and I had stickers made up, and I made a name up for my company, and I put the stickers on the truck, and got the truck all ready to go, and said, here, stand in front of me, and stand in front of the truck, and she took a picture of it, and I jumped online, and I heard that you go on these websites and look up loads, and I did that, and I called on this load, and I was pretty short on cash, and it was a load going out to Pennsylvania, and it had 2 pickups in Wisconsin, and the lady was like, how soon could you be there? She goes, we have another driver on it, and he dropped off. And I said, well, I'm sitting here right now. I can take off right now. I'll be up there in an hour and a half to the first pickup. She said, okay. She goes, we'll give you $3,000 to do this load.
Wow.
And I was like, how much? And I was like, really? And she goes, we got to get this covered. If you can go right now, we'll give you $3,000. I said, okay. So I took off, and I made the first pickup, and I ran to the second pickup and got that part of it loaded up, and I took off and ran it out to Pennsylvania, and it was supposed to be there in 2 days, if I remember correctly, and I ran it pretty much straight out there and got out there, and I checked in, and it was I can't remember what grocery warehouse it was. Start with an M. Can't remember what the name of it was. But I checked in about 2 hours before my appointment, and the lady goes, you have no appointment. and I just said, what? And I called the company that I brokered it through, which was out of Iowa. And I really wish I could remember their name and the company because they did a really good job. But I called up, and the lady's like, I don't know what to tell you. It's in the middle of the night. She goes, just hang out there and call back at 7 o'clock in the morning, and somebody will get this straightened out. And so I did that, and I was nice and polite about it. I didn't yell or nothing. I said, no problem. And I sat there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I called up. Turned out somebody on a night shift at that company didn't know that load had been covered, and they called and canceled the appointment.
Uh-oh.
And so then they had to call back there, and they couldn't give me an appointment until the next morning.
Oh.
And I said, okay. And then the lady, and then she goes, don't worry. She goes, we will get you to some detention. And it was my first load. I said, no problem. We'll work together. I don't have a problem. I'll take care of the load. And I was real polite about it and everything. And the owner of the company, the trucking company I brokered it through, called me later that afternoon and said, I hear that you got kind of screwed over on this load. I apologize very greatly. He goes, you're going to be there for like 28 to 30 hours. And he goes, I want to take care of you. And he goes, from what I hear from my dispatch, you're just the best polite driver we have. A lot of drivers yell and stuff. He goes, you've been really polite and patient with us. And he goes, I apologize. He goes, I want to send you $2,000 for your detention.
$2,000 for?
Yes.
Holy smokies.
And I said to him, I said, listen, I said, I'm trying to be fair here. And I said, I think that you're kind of overpaying this. And I said, I was thinking like $600 to $800. And he goes, I tell you what. He goes, do you have a pen? He goes, I'm going to give you a T-check number for this. I wrote the number down, and he goes, I'm making it for $2,000. He goes, the next time you're looking for a load, call me.
Wow.
I think it was, you see, I just had started up my own company. I was paying for my own fuel. And then that fell on me. And I think it was, you know, somebody looking out for me and giving me a little head start.
Yeah, wow. So did you ever get burned with loads, Larry? People not paying you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's a guy in Kenosha that got me for $2,800.
Wow.
Yeah, I bid on a load. I took the load. I went out to New Jersey, delivered a load, and sent him the paperwork. And he was supposed to pay me in 2 days, and he didn't pay me. And I got a hold of him, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. He goes, I'll just mail it to your house. He goes, what's your address? And I said, okay. And I gave him my address, and I got home about a week and a half later, something like that, and we still didn't have a check. And we tried calling him, and you couldn't get, and there was the phone number wasn't working.
Oh.
And we went after the guy through his brokerage company, and it turned out that he has done this to many other truck drivers, and he had to carry a $10,000 bond to be bonded. And so far, they said that they've had about $25,000 worth of loads called in.
Sheesh.
So the guy did it, you know, on purpose. He was shutting his company down, and so he went out and put all these loads on truck drivers, had them all haul them for him, and he got paid from the companies for hauling the loads, and then he just shut his shop up and cut town, and he had that bond for $10,000. So the first truck drivers that called, they got paid up to that $10,000, and everybody else just out in the wind they went.
Oh, that's really bad.
Yeah, that's the only one we've ever got. After that, you could pay a company to do credit checks.
Yeah.
And if the credit check is approved.
You didn't do all the credit check before when you started?
No. When I first started, I didn't know all about that, and I just took the loads, and we got paid, and it was no problem for about almost 2 years. I didn't have any problem. And then that guy, and it was $2,800. And then after that, you could do these credit checks, and if they approved the load, you sent them the paperwork, you got paid for it, and then they would go after the guy to get their money. And if they didn't get paid, that didn't come out of your pocket.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it takes a percentage of your pay, but at least you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Now, what was the big advantage of you being an owner-operator? In the mechanical side, I bet you that saved you a lot of money, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, because I worked on all my own equipment. I've actually been a diesel mechanic for another trucking company, so I rebuilt motors, transmissions, everything. So I was able to repair all my own stuff, and that has a big advantage, because when you got to pay a shop, it's hard.
And your farm is also set up with most of the tools.
Well, I've bought all the tools over the years, and I have everything set up out there to do most of the work. And so I'm able to do it, and I have a good friend of mine that you know him, and he's had his own trucking company, and he went bankrupt because of all the bills from repairs.
Yeah,
and it's hard. Especially when you're out in North Carolina or Texas or wherever, and something happens, you're at the mercy of that garage.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not kind sometimes because they know they got you.
Yeah. I'll never forget the day you overhauled your own engine.
Yeah, I did that. That was about 3 years ago.
Without proper training, without education, nothing.
No, I've never been trained at it. I look at things and I can figure out how they work. I can tear them apart and figure out how they work. And I was a truck driver for another company, and I had an accident, and I went into the windshield, and I messed up my shoulder a little bit. And then instead of the guy paying me for disability and being off of work, he said I could use help in the shop. Whatever you can do there, you can do there. So I came to work in the shop, and ever since that day, I was a mechanic in his shop. And I rebuilt a bunch of motors for him and stuff. So I had experience rebuilding motors.
But if I remember correctly, when you rebuild your motors, you had a couple of bolts or washers left over, right?
Well, you always do. If you don't have leftover parts, you didn't do something right.
And what was your reaction, Larry?
You just kind of look at it and you look at it carefully, and you go, okay, I see that. They throw it over your shoulder, and you hope you're right.
Yeah. What was that part that you kind of not included in your assembly in your own engine?
In my own engine.
Yeah. Remember when you rebuilt your motor, and then there was that little thing that you were supposed to put it back, but the guy said, nah, you can't. You can do without that part, whatever.
I can't remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, you told me once that.
Yeah, well, I don't remember.
I don't know. It's something that if you almost had to take the whole engine apart just to put it back in there. But probably like an oil pump or something like that, or something, or an oil pickup tube. Who knows? Yeah,
probably something silly.
It was that guy from Mac, Fond du Lac Mac, that said, nah.
Oh, yeah. I do remember there was something, but I can't remember. Yeah, he came out and he saw it sitting there, and he said, "Why didn't you put that in there?" And I was like, "I didn't notice it, I guess." And he's like, "Yeah, we got to have that in there." So I can't remember what it was, but yeah. Yeah. If you don't have leftover parts, you didn't do something right, though.
Yeah.
Well, I rebuilt an engine for this trucking company I worked at. I rebuilt an engine for him, and we fired the engine up. And we had a guy that worked at a Mac dealership, and he would come out and he would set timing and do all the technical stuff, and we just do the grunt work. And he came out, and we fired the engine up, and me and him kind of looked at each other and went, man, it sounds like something's not right, like something's ticking, like a valve is hitting or something. And we shut it down, and he had this like little robot camera thing, and he goes, let's just look inside there. And we pulled one of the ejectors out and stuck this little camera down into the cylinders and looked around. We found 2 washers sitting on top of the pistons. And so every time one of those pistons go up, there was a little ting, 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 ting. Those washers are bouncing around in there.
Now, whose boo-boo was that? Yours?
That was, no, that was for a company I worked at.
Oh.
And he goes, you don't know how many times that happens. And he goes, as long as the customer doesn't find out, nothing never happened. And so he had this little magnet that he had special, and he stuck it down in the injector, and he fished those out, and he pulled these little washers and stuff out.
Oh,
and then we fired the engine up, and no problem, ran good.
Yeah, remember when you used to work for that tanker guy? And
for the tanker guy?
Yeah, all the mechanic.
Twin trucking?
Yeah, the mechanic in there they didn't really. The company mechanic themselves didn't really know what they were doing, did they?
No. I'm a night person, and so I always like working at night. And so I would come in about 6 at night, and I would work till about 8 in the morning. And I would work on all the trucks and trailers and everything. And it worked out well because that's when all the equipment was there, because the guy would have his trucks out working during the day, and then at night we'd actually get to work on stuff. But then he hired this one idiot, and this guy, he was just so stupid, and they brought him in there, and he worked at a bus company changing tires. And basically he lied and told the guy who owned the company that he knew all about trucks and everything. He never saw a truck in his life. And they hired him as the head mechanic, and he came in there working on days. And I never was professionally trained, but the I just know how to work on things. And the guy would always come up to me and ask me how to do something. And it's like, you're the head mechanic. So there was a few issues there. Eventually they figured it out and got rid of them, and then I just ran the whole shop.
Yeah, what kind of truck was that? A Mack cab over something?
Yeah, it's a Mack. It's just a Mack cab overs. I don't just a cab over. But they the newest truck he had was a 1972.
Yeah,
and he had 13 trucks. They ranged from 68 to 72.
Tell people how crazy he was to spend so much money.
He had such pride. I think they're called cruise liners. I think.
Yeah. It was cruise liner. Yep.
Yep. And he only wanted that truck, and he would go out and find these trucks in farmers' fields or wherever, and they would have to be between a 1968, who was the newest one that he would have, because after that they started having air conditioning and airbags, and he didn't want none of that stuff.
Yeah, he didn't want the airbags.
No, he didn't want air ride. He wanted the Camelback springs. He wanted old school, and that way they were all mechanically. There was no computers. It's all mechanical. And he would go out and find these trucks, and he'd pay people $5,000 for a junk truck sitting on the field. And he'd bring that truck back in, and we would tear it all the way down to the frame and rebuild that whole truck. And we would spend $50,000-$60,000 in parts and rebuild that truck back up. And then he would put chrome bumpers and chrome accent panels everywhere, and the paint jobs. He had special customized paint jobs on things. Every one of the trucks was identical. And I mean, these trucks, when he was done, he'd have $50,000 to $75,000 stuck in a truck.
If I remember correctly, he spent millions just on...
Oh, the maintenance was crazy. Because, I mean, you figure you got a fleet of 1970 trucks running down, the road. And we're hauling tankers, and these things back in 1970, what were they rated? They only had little 300 motors and 300 horsepower motors.
Yeah.
So they were rated to haul, maybe 30,000, 25,000 pounds. And he's hauling them with, full tankers, 40,000 pounds, hauling these things up and down the road. We would blow one of these trucks up probably once every 2 to 3 months. We'd blow an engine up.
Yeah, because you guys they were over revving, weren't they?
Oh yeah, they would run those things at about 2,200 RPM, running up and down the highways, and and those trucks ran a lot because he had 13 trucks and he had about 20 drivers, and the drivers, one would run shift, and then as soon as he'd be coming in, there'd be another driver waiting to jump right in that truck and go out and do his shift. It was a lot of work. But yeah, he told me in a bar one night, we were sitting there and we were sitting there having a drink, and he was a little bit tipsy, and he told me, he says, everybody wants me to buy new trucks and go to new trucks. They say I'll save so much on maintenance. And he goes, I only spend about $1 million a year on the maintenance of this truck. I just looked at him and I'm like, $1 million a year? He goes, yeah, that's not too bad. You're crazy.
Yeah, I don't think a fleet of 20 trucks would spend $1 million.
Yeah, well, he did.
But boy, he restored those things almost to original, didn't he?
Yeah, they were restored to original, and then he did custom deals on them, chrome plating, everything, and chrome stag. I mean, everything. He would go to the Waupun Truck Show over here every year, and he got first place for his trucks every single year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I think he made it to a couple of magazines and newspapers.
Yeah, he was in a bunch of magazines and newspapers. They would come out there, and we would have to line all the trucks up however the camera guy wanted, and they'd take a picture of all of his trucks lined up, and they were in quite a few different magazines.
Yeah.
Yeah. he had a lot of tractors too, and a lot of tractors, farm equipment. So there was that stuff too.
He had a gold mine as far as a business.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. He was doing land spreading, and he would haul from smaller municipalities, cities, and stuff. They have like their waste dump, and all the sewage would go into there, and then it has a drainage system. And then once it goes through that drainage system, you're left with, stuff that you need to spread, that you need to get out. And so he would go in there and pump this out. This was one aspect of his business. He would go in there and pump this all out in the trucks, haul it out in the fields, and then he had these great big four-wheel drive, split in the middle tractors, case tractors, and these big tanker spreaders that would inject this into the ground. And he would make well over $1 million a year just doing that aspect.
Yeah.
That's where he made most of his money.
But he kind of blew it off from buying all those old trucks and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, he spent a lot of money with that if he would have got out of that. And at the end, he kind of said, it may have been a foolish thing, but he liked those trucks. You couldn't get him off of them.
And more like he was obsessed with those trucks.
He was. He likes old things and he fixes them up. He just bought a new pickup truck. I just saw him a few months ago, and he went out and he bought like a 96 F350 or something, and put it in his shop and rebuilt the motor and the transmission and did all the body job on it, and that.
Larry, you're breaking up. Larry. Well, I guess it's time to say goodnight to Larry anyway. All right, everybody. I think, I hope, and I'm sure you guys have enjoyed Larry's company. And we'll talk to him sometime again. So for now, good night, and hopefully, God willing, we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.